Hey everybody, we're just getting started, so thanks for joining us. Very excited to have this conversation today, and good to have Indra here as my wonderful co-host. I'm going to start pinging a few people in the room, and we'll get going in maybe a minute or so. Thanks also, Daniel, for being here too, and feel free to retweet the link above there in the nest to get more people in the room. I'm just going to start pinging a few folks. Indra, how are you doing today? How's your morning? And how was your weekend, actually?
Oh, hey, Bobby. Great morning. I'm off to a great start this morning. The weekend sort of got away from me. I don't know where it went, but it was a great weekend. Yes, I'm looking forward to having a chat with you about this and ask you a lot of questions. Uh, I know quite a bit about you, Bobby, being friends with you for a while here on Twitter, in the Twitter land, but a lot of people may not know all the ins and outs and all the details of how you grew your following and how you monetized. So I'm super excited to be on this journey with you in this space.
Awesome. And can you tell me more about? So you said your weekend got away from you. What'd you do? You were having fun. What were you doing?
Yes, there was quite a bit of fun. There were family barbecues. There was hiking in what I call in California. It was pretty cold in 50 degrees, and I I have this beautiful like succulent dragon fruit kind of garden, and it just looks like a completely new place now. So I kind of went crazy in the garden. Plant therapy. That's what it's called, everybody. Plant therapy.
Yeah,
Um,
I know my dad's a big green thumb. He loved his garden. I was never much of a garden guy. I'm more of a water therapy or a I don't know, hiking in a forest therapy kind of guy. But that's great. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, no, and it looks amazing, and just just being out in nature and away from social media, just it's a big difference, I think, just to have that time away in balance. Particularly, I mean, we're talking about social media today, but it's also good, like, to take some time off. Like a weekend is great to be away from it.
Yeah, and I'll just share a little thing. I saw my son perform in a musical called Susical, and it was a lot of fun. His sister was really proud of him, and she gave him a big hug, and so that was really nice. So, very nice weekend from that standpoint. Today, we're going to talk about how I always come up with topics every week. This is the Power Connection Chat, where every week at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we host a Twitter space. Andrew is always my wonderful co-host, and we have always amazing speakers who come up on stage and share their stories and share their thoughts and ideas. And we're very open to welcoming questions. So if you want to put your hand up, come on stage, you totally can. We'd love to have you. I see Adam's already down there, and Adam's always a great contributor too. I'm going to talk about today how I grew 600,000 plus followers and monetized across three digital platforms. Now, I said 600,000 because actually I have more, but it's 600,000 across three of them, in particular Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I'm also using Clubhouse. I just started on TikTok, but and I also use Facebook, of course. But those are three in which, it's very easy for me to talk about business and content creation and monetization because that's where I've definitely done it, although I have done other platforms too. So if you're interested in this conversation, we'd love for you to join this. We'd love for you to share it with people. So please click on the tweet above there and retweet it to folks. Please click on the arrow on top, and you can send a DM to some of your followers to join this room. And also on the bottom right, there's the bubble, the chat bubble, where you can actually, if you can't come on stage, you can actually share questions there or share knowledge insights as we're talking along. So, what we've done today, though, is that Indra is actually going to do an interview style. She's going to interview me, which is kind of cool. So I'm kind of excited about that. But yeah, so maybe do I just hand over to you, Indra? How do you want to do this? I'm excited.
Yes, yes. Okay, I am super excited as well because, as I said, I do know quite a bit of your journey, but I bet there's going to be things that I'm going to learn about your journey. So I guess I think I think the best place to start is, Bobby, tell us about your beginning and of your journey, like how you started on social media and what was the reason, and then we can build from there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a social guy, and I think before the internet came along, I learned about MySpace, I learned about Friendster, Ringo, High Five, all those other ones, and I love the idea of being able to connect with people digitally. And when email came, I was emailing my friends. So, the first place was kind of Facebook, was where I started really building a profile and, having added all my connections from my life. But these are all personal connections. These are people I knew. And then LinkedIn was also another one that I signed on for early on, and I enhanced my connections there as quick as I could. I think I got 4,000 connections there pretty quickly, and then eventually grew to 8,000 connections. But I think that where things really I got my head into it was I remember I was speaking at doing a keynote on networking and personal branding at this big conference for like 500 people, 500 young entrepreneurs, and there was a woman there, and she said, "Why aren't you on Twitter, Bobby?" I'm like, "What?" I was like, Twitter's just for like celebrities and you know sports figures, politicians. I don't need to be there." And she's like, "Do you have a message for the world?" I'm like, "Damn right I do. Absolutely." He's like, "Well, then you should be on Twitter." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And so I went on Twitter and I tweeted one tweet that first day, and I just said, and I was like, let me use my I know what I'm going to talk about. Power of connection. Rule number one: listen. That's all I tweeted. That one tweet that day. Then the next day I tweeted power of connection. Rule number two: smile. And I did one tweet per day. And after about I think about 12 days in, and it was kind of fun for me to come up with these power connection rules, and I would share them on Facebook and LinkedIn as well because why not? It's kind of cool what I'm doing. And then people started responding and people started engaging, and I was like, this is kind of cool. And I found Twitter to be the best place where I started building things. And so at the same time, I had just landed my first TEDx talk. And so on March 5th, 2011, I decided to launch my digital strategy. I launched a Facebook business page. I launched a newsletter, an email newsletter. I launched my Twitter strategy and a bit of a LinkedIn strategy too. And the first place to take off was Twitter. Within about 6 months, I had about 5,000 followers. But the real big moment for me was someone said, and I remember who it was. It was an organization called Autism Ontario. And they said, Bobby, we love what you talk about. You talk about connection and leadership and all these cool things. Can you come in and do a paid talk for us? And I was like, what? Absolutely. I was like, holy cow. I can, people hire me off this stuff. That was the first time I'd ever, monetized from social media. I couldn't believe it. Well, I mean, technically I had a couple of conversations from Facebook and whatnot, but this was the first time I directly landed a client. I was like, this is great. And so when that happened, I was like, wow, I am all in for social media. I need to like really build this up. And so Twitter was the first one. So I started really focusing on that. Got that to about 100,000 followers in about, I guess it was about 18 months of working hard with that. And, uh, and then I was like, this is fantastic. I love it. And now, Twitter growth in the early days was faster than it is now. It's harder now. It's slower. Like it takes longer. But it was great that in the early days. And what helped with that is that, then I got more TEDx talks from that. I got a speaker agent who loved my social media reach, and so Twitter was the first place where I realized the power of social media and how much influence and opportunities it can create for you. And at the same time, when you have that established brand, how it can lead to business. So I think that's the beginning of it. I did a little tweet thread today too, where I talked briefly about it. But did you want me? Is that enough to start?
Yeah, I think that's a really nice start and a nice foundation. And I mean, you shared a lot there, Bobby, and there's a lot that I also want to unpack there. Now, something really important that has been coming through just in these beginning stages of your beginning on LinkedIn and on Twitter is it seemed to be like you were creating like a consistent kind of plan that you were sending out your messages. Now, I heard more of that on the Twitter side. So, also, could you share what you were also doing on the LinkedIn to also attract people? Now your message was very clear, and I want you to talk about your message and your consistency and share with everybody all these gems that I know a little bit about that they would love to know about.
Yeah, so I think what I will say is that every single one of the platforms happened chronologically. So initially on LinkedIn, I wasn't doing very much. In fact, I'd make connections and then I would automate, 4 to 6 articles per week via Hootsuite and Buffer, and I wasn't really doing much else. So, I got to 8,000 connections on LinkedIn. But then in 2017, I had a conversation. I had a coffee with my friend Swish Goswami, and he said, "Bobby, LinkedIn's changed. You need to put content out there on a regular basis, like that's native." And so I started there the same way I started on Twitter, where I said daily LinkedIn tip number one, and I just shared a couple of things. Then I did the next day daily LinkedIn tip number two, and again same thing happened. 5 days later, at the fifth tip, people started engaging me and asking questions, and that's where I saw, wow, okay, LinkedIn is really good too. And so for me, that's a big piece of it, right? So that creating the content, being consistent, goes a long way. And the other thing that happens is that you also start to learn about your brand. You start to learn about what people like and what they want. So I often tell people, personal branding and diving your personal brand and targeting and objectives is really important for digital growth. But at the same time, don't let it stop you from creating content. So some people want to perfect their brand and target before they create content. And other people want to create content and not think about their brand or their target. And what you should do is you should do both at the same time. Because as you're creating content, people are engaging. You can ask feedback. What do you think of this? What do you want to hear more about? All that kind of stuff. And that goes a long way. And so for me, the consistency was the first piece of doing both. I was working on my brand, I was working on my consistency piece. And then after that, then I started looking at other platforms. But LinkedIn started, and LinkedIn was a place where there's professionals. So I was like, okay, how do I then monetize here? And honestly, the best way to monetize on any platform or to build influence is to learn from the best, right? So how did I grow Twitter in the early days? I talked to and engaged all the influencers that were here, and they were sharing with me their knowledge as I grew. And the same thing happened on LinkedIn. I started talking to the people who were on LinkedIn and engaging and whatnot, and I learned a lot, particularly in that first 6 to 12 months of 2017 and 2018, where I was building on the platform. So I think that's an important piece too, to really talk to experts, influencers. Because the other thing is interesting, you have to talk to many of them because everyone has different opinions on things. So it's good to find what is the thing that everyone is saying is the same, right? It's like when you're trying to lose weight and people give you all this advice, but try shakes, try keto, try this one, try intermittent fasting, try this. And everyone gives you different advice, but what's the one thing that everyone says? They all say drink water. Done. I will drink lots of water. They all say get lots of sleep. Done. I will do that. Right. So there's certain things they all say, and so that same philosophy helped me with building the content strategy there. And the other thing, and the last thing I'll say is that the personal brand piece is incredibly important because once you nail your personal brand and you're clear on your strengths, your weaknesses, what people love about you, what they don't like about you, it enhances everything. It enhances your targeting, it optimizes your content strategy, it optimizes your outreach strategy, it optimizes your growth strategy. There's more clarity, purpose, and direction with what you're doing. You know who you serve. And when you know who you serve, you can identify the pain points, the bliss points, the top questions on their mind. So that drives the content, that drives, the DMs, it drives everything you do. So, before I had a clear personal brand on things, and also a personal brand that evolves because it was evolving as I went along. Um, when you have clarity on that brand, then instead of being 65% aligned with your digital deployment strategy, now you're 85 to 95% aligned, and that's when the results happen. So that's where the magic happens. And so for me, that's how to get going.
Wow, that's amazing, Bobby. So much great information, and I'm sure everybody's going to appreciate listening to the replay on this. Okay, so we have some great questions in the chat. So thank you so much, the businessman, for those questions. And actually,
Although we
thank you.
also love people to come up on stage. So click
Yes,
that hand button. Come on up here so we can virtually hug you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I promise that Bobby and I will not bite. In fact, we'll make you very welcome up here. So if anybody would like to join us, absolutely come on up. But let's jump to this first question. Okay, so he wants to know which three digital platforms would you recommend?
That's a great question. I get that all the time. So, and I hate to give the answer, it depends, but really you have to be clear on who your target audience is and where they are. Like, what's your objective? Who's your target audience? Where are they? right? So that to me is a really, really big thing because certain platforms are good for certain things, right? So that's something you have to keep in mind. That's and also the other thing you have to look at is what are your assets? What are your strengths? Right? Are you a video person? Are you good at video content? Then obviously YouTube and TikTok and Instagram are helpful to you, right? Are you good at other types of content? Maybe you're good at something else. So maybe you know SEO really well, and so YouTube can be good for you. So you have to think about those things. However, I think that I've always said in the early days, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook were the big three to begin with because Facebook was great for personal connections and starting conversations with people in crowdsourcing with friends that you know. LinkedIn is a professional network, which is really great, and Twitter has incredible opportunity for accessibility, awareness, responsiveness, and getting thought leaders and influencers and experts to reply back and tweet back at you, which is something that's far better on Twitter than anywhere else. So, I like those three to start with. But again, there's benefits to Instagram, there's benefits to TikTok, there's benefits to Clubhouse and social audio spaces. So you really have to think. Maybe some people are really good at YouTube. I know some people who are really, they're in visual types of brands, like they're fitness people or they're real estate people or they're bakers, and so they put their stuff on Pinterest and Instagram because that's where it makes sense for them. But I love Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn for those three reasons I just said. I think those three are really good. Um, but again, if you're starting, if you had to, I'm really big on multi-platform expansion. I think that, you never know what might happen, and so it's good to have more than one place. So if you have to pick two, Twitter and LinkedIn are really good, a good duo to start with from a business perspective, right? I'm using TikTok and Facebook for personal mostly, whereas LinkedIn and Twitter really have huge advantages for building business.
Awesome. Okay, so I noticed that we've got Adam's hand up, so maybe we'll jump over to Adam and then continue on the questions afterwards. Hey, Adam, warm welcome, and anybody else that would like to join us.
Yeah, thanks. Bobby, I spent so much time trying to get my little emojis to work because I agree with so much of what you were saying. But Twitter Spaces has just been, as you know, temperamental for me. I wanted to double down though on what one of the things you said with regard to trying out different platforms. And, as I talk so much about networking and relationship building, one of the things that I talk a lot about is something that you mentioned, which is trying different things and, leveraging different platforms. And I think that one of the most interesting tactics that I've kind of fallen into is some people who are very, very well known, very, very influential on particular platforms, and it might be Twitter or LinkedIn or TikTok. Oftentimes, those people are trying to grow their brand and grow their footprint on other platforms. And as they are growing that brand somewhere else, they may be more reachable because they haven't hit that critical mass yet. So, someone who has a huge LinkedIn following, they may be on Twitter experimenting with their content there. And so their follower count may not be 100,000 people. It could be a few hundred people or 1,000 people. And so it may be easier to engage with that person and find a way to create value for that person when you stand out from 1,000 other voices as opposed to 100,000 other voices. And what you're doing in real time is you're communicating to that person that you like their content. Maybe you mentioned that you found their content on a different platform, but you also recognize that they're trying to build their footprint somewhere else. And you want to be a positive part of that building and that engagement. So, to your point about leveraging different platforms, it can be something as simple as, okay, here's somebody who I like, who I find influential and a positive factor in my life. How do I engage with that person in a way that indicates to them that I'm looking for some sort of interaction and in a way that creates mutual value.
Yeah, no, I love that, and and it's a really good point that a lot of people who have influence on one platform don't have as much on other ones. So, a good way to build connection relation is focus on the platform that they're not very strong in, and see if you can build a connection there. Because when they have a lot on one other platform, it's hard for them to keep track of everything. And so, and the other point to keep in mind that's really important is that just because I have 500,000 followers on Twitter doesn't mean I'm going to automatically get a lot of people on LinkedIn or Instagram or my email list to follow me. From my experience in the last, I mean, I started this, gosh, when was this? 2007, 8, I guess, around there, 2009. In my experience, every single platform that I've built on, I had to spend time on that platform to really build it, not to use my. It didn't transfer over. Like the 500,000 didn't transfer over to the 70,000 LinkedIn to the 33,000 on Instagram. They were built manually in each platform, and not. I mean, there was some transfer, but it was very, very minimal. So I found that to be really interesting.
Okay, thanks so much, Adam. Um, did Bobby answer all your the rest of your question kind of by the add-ons, and then we can move on? Just checking in with you, Adam.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I just wanted to throw that in, and yeah, Bobby absolutely answered the question or the yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so before we go to our new speaker, I want to jump into the second question, part two of that question from Businessman. Bobby, did you have a specific audience you wanted to attract, or was it open-ended? This is a great question.
Yeah, in the beginning, it was open ended. I wasn't in the beginning. I wasn't really thinking about my target audience. I just put stuff out there, mostly because the stuff I was talking about, connection and networking, leadership. In my mind, I felt it applied to everybody, and so I would just share the power of connection rules on Twitter. I would share the LinkedIn, daily LinkedIn tip on LinkedIn. I wasn't thinking of a targeted audience. I was really just broadly putting it out there. And I think a lot of people are like that. Most people who start on content, they just put, it's it's just to put shit out there and see what happens, right? See what sticks, right? And so that's kind of what I was doing in the beginning. But then I think that once I started doing that and people started engaging, I started evolving and more niching down. Okay, who are the people I'm really trying to talk to? But there's still parts of me that are still quite open to everybody because I do love talking to lots of folks, and even the Power Connection chat, which we do here every week. I mean, the topics we talk about are pretty much ones that apply to a lot of people. I have my own customer avatars for sure now, and I have target audiences, but I still post things, and they certainly have a lot of broad appeal. So that's kind of, I think, the answer to that question.
Awesome. Okay, so we lost our other speaker. They might come back, but let's go on to the next question then. The third question. Thank you so much for this question as well from the businessman. So, how long did it take you to reach the superb following, and which 3 points would you put first?
I'm not sure what that means. Which 3 points? Like three like tips and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's what he means. Yeah, what would be your tips on those on that following?
Okay. Okay. So I think that I mean, let's see. How long did it take me to reach the superb following? Well, so on Twitter, the first 100,000 took about 18 months. I think it takes longer now for certain accounts. I mean, unless you have like a very monumental global event, like someone slaps you at the Oscars, then you'll get lots of followers. But I think that or you climb Mount Everest or something, having some scandal, whatever it may be. But I think that was 18 months, and then I got to a point where it was around 400,000, and I think that happened in about, I'd say, 3 years, and then it kind of stalled after that. And then there was also many years where I wasn't on Twitter doing very much. I mean, I was retweeting and automating tweets, but I wasn't doing very much engagement. So that's what that took. And then for the LinkedIn one, I went from 8,000 to 47,000 followers in about, I'd say that took about, well, I mean, I started in 2017, so now there you go. That's like 5 years. 5 years. I mean, I got to a really good level, like 20, 30,000, pretty quickly, and then it slowly just kept growing and growing. And so, again, you're playing the long game here, guys, when you're trying to build that influence. Some platforms that go a lot better. I mean, Instagram got to. I mean, Instagram's been slow too. I mean, very slow. 33,000 over. That's probably over like 4 years, I would say, to get there. And then let's see, Clubhouse was fast. Clubhouse, I spent a year there and got to 13,000 pretty quickly, because again, it was a hot and heavy item that people were using. We'll see how TikTok goes. I've been on TikTok for only like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. So who knows how? And right now I'm at I think 40, 50 followers. Woo! So and one of the things I'll share a little side tidbit, which was I remember years ago they used to have these social media parties, right? So you have like these, I forget what they're called, but they were like these like social media parties of people who were on social media, or Twitter parties and whatnot. And you go to a club or a bar and you hang out with people that are on social media, and you meet people and you follow each other. And this is like way, way back in the day, right? And I remember meeting, I met one woman who had 40,000 followers. At the time, I had like 200, 300 followers. So I was really intimidated by her, because she had 40,000 followers. Like, oh my God, she's an influencer. And when I met her, it was actually kind of interesting because number one, uh, the way she tweeted was extremely confident, but the way she talked was extremely awkward. And I just thought, wow, that's fascinating, because I'm a very confident networker in person, right? So I talked to people, and I came up, hey, how? I was actually shy at first, but then she started talking, and I was like, oh, okay. But then she told me something that really blew my mind, which she's like, because I said, like I was like, I was kind of intimidated by you because you have so many followers, and I only have like a couple of hundred. And she's like, Bobby, everyone starts at zero. And that really moved me, because it's like, yeah, every single person starts at zero. It doesn't matter where you are. Now there are a few people who, they get lots of followers and it goes to their head. And, I've had people who I've had great connections with, and we've done live streams together. And then next thing you know, one of them in particular, I remember she just got she got a TED talk, and then she got several hundred thousand followers. And next thing you know, I reached out to her to congratulate her, and no response, and she disconnected from me because, like, okay, I guess she's too big for me. But whatever, those are rare. So, but most people are usually pretty, easy going. They're chill. I mean, they meet me and they realize, oh, Bobby's a pretty chill guy, and that's fine. So I think it's good to not let that stuff go in your head. But everyone starts at zero, and so it just takes time to understand that that's you starting up, and then you build it up, and you can get there. And the other thing I'll say too is you don't need 500,000 followers to generate business, right? You don't need to have, like, it's an asset. What I have on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter is an asset, which I'm grateful for, and I've built because it's a huge asset for my business, whether I'm influencer marketing or public speaking or around the world traveling and coaching, whatever. But it's an asset. You can still monetize on digital platforms with only a couple hundred followers. One of the best places to do that actually is Twitter Spaces. If you ran a Twitter Space and deliver great knowledge, every week for several weeks, and DM people, you could probably find a way to generate some clients.
So, Bobby, just out of curiosity to build on that, so what would you say if somebody was starting out and say they had, I don't know, like they built up to 30,000 or 40,000 followers? What are some ways that you have tried and tested uh, to monetize at that point, and which platforms were they specifically?
Well, I mean, monetization comes in multiple forms, right? So, I mean, if you have influence, if you have a lot of followers, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, for example, one of the ways to monetize is to reach out to people, who might be potential clients, or people who might hire you, or organizations, and say, "Hey, I'd like to interview you or your head and do a live stream on my platform," right? And mention the platform that you have, because then you build that relationship, which then can lead to a potential. And then next thing you know, you're talking about, hey, so how's your profile going? What's going on with that? Next thing you know, you're talking to them, and then they hire you to optimize their profile or what they're working on. So, I mean, that's a very easy thing to do if you have that influence. Now, if you don't have that influence, I mean, again, whether you have the influence or not, you can still host Twitter Space rooms. You can still do live streams. You can still do a podcast and invite people. Inviting people and interviewing them and building those connections goes a long way to building clients. And so now, if you don't want to do a podcast, I mean, again, you can still tweet things out. You can create posts and then engage and encourage people to comment. And next thing you know, you engage in the DMs. That's where the money is, guys. The money is in the DMs, because you start a great DM strategy with anybody on any platform, and then build that connection. And next thing you know, it leads to a Zoom call or in-person meeting, and then you do business. And so for me, like, the content strategy, the whole point of content strategy is to build conversations, to showcase your expertise, to be engaged and responsive to folks, and put stuff out there that's going to attract the people that you're trying to attract, so that you can finally get into conversation with them, whether through the comments or the tweet replies, or and finally into the DMs. But you want to get them to the DMs eventually, so that maybe you might book a call. Because and some of the times it's a long game. I mean, I have a call tomorrow with somebody who, he had been following my stuff on Twitter for a long time. He then reached out to me on, I think, Twitter, and wanted to connect on LinkedIn. I said, great. And next thing you know, he wanted to join my Thought Leisure Brand Club membership community, which I have. I have a membership community called Thought Leisure Brand Club, which is with about 40, 50 people. And we just share knowledge, and we do coaching calls and whatnot. And then he's like, Bobby, you know what? I want to work with you one-on-one. Can I book a call? I'm like, oh, absolutely. And now he's booking a call with me tomorrow. We're going to talk about, how I can coach with him. So, that now is a longer kind of play there, but it happened over a period of like 3 to 6 months. I hope I answered the question. And
Yeah,
again,
no,
let's
no,
have more people on
absolutely.
stage here. Come up on stage, guys, and also please tweet this out there. Use the tweets and share the knowledge. And let's get more people in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Adam, while you're up here on stage, did you have any thoughts on the question and what Bobby's been sharing, or did you want to go any deeper on that? Because I know he shared a lot of things, but I almost feel like there's so much to still deep dive into.
Yeah, I mean, I really, Bobby and I have known each other for a little while now, and I really enjoy his content. And I think that actually the relationship that he and I have developed is really a great example of the strategies that he is talking about. Because I ran across Bobby's content. I think it was LinkedIn first, funny enough. And, I really connect with a lot of the messaging around, value creation, especially before you ask for it. So, I'm in tech and startups, and I'm an advisor down at the Atlanta Tech Village. And so I spend a lot of time talking with founders about networking and relationship building. And a lot of it is in line with what Bobby's talking about in terms of sometimes, many times, relationships, they take time, right? Time to cultivate and gestate. And especially in tech and startups, when there's kind of like a ship yesterday, iterate really quickly kind of mentality, and that works really well for code and products and things like that. But relationships are kind of more complex, and complex in a different way is a better way of saying it. And so, when I ran across Bobby's stuff, it's not like I had this mentality of, okay, one day, he and I are going to be best friends. That's not really a healthy mentality, and that kind of I think sometimes you get across you fall across the people who are kind of I hesitate to use this term, but kind of like they fanboy all over different influencers. But I do think it is a good strategy to have in your mindset. Hey, I really like this person's content and their message and their example, and if I learn a little bit more and if I create some more value, maybe we can have a call at some point. Maybe it's a call where I would like to book their service, or maybe it's a call where we find that there's a way to do some mutual business together. The answer is you don't really know until you have that conversation, that dialogue. And you don't really know, what that conversation is going to look like until you put in the time and the engagement. A lot of this relationship building that Bobby's talking about, it's not really difficult. It's time consuming. It's about patience and empathy and consistency. And it's not difficult on the level of, me trying to solve math problems. That's difficult. But it's really just about identifying people whom you like, in terms of you like their vibe, you like their content, you find that it brings positivity to your network and to your daily routine, and just have a mindset of, I like this, I'd like to engage with this person and see where it can go. And it's something else Bobby said, which was really, it really, really connected with me when he was sharing the story of the person who disconnected from him, and you kind of shrug it off. Before I was in tech and startups, before I was in doing networking and speaking, what I do now, I spent over a decade in the music industry, which is a story for another time. But there is an adage in the punk world that goes something like, "If you forget us on the way up, we'll see you on the way down." And it's really just a mentality that is, there were people at the beginning who were supporting you. There were people at the beginning who enjoyed your content, who purchased your product, who helped you make your service or your pitch better. And just don't take people for granted, because everybody's time is worth something. And when you go out there and you put out a vibe that's like, okay, now I don't need you anymore, believe me, people notice. The one thing that people are not is stupid. And so, yeah, I mean, you shrug it off and you move on to the next set of relationships that are hopefully much more positive than that. But in the meantime, you can inadvertently create a reputation which is, shall we say, not wholly positive. So anyway, those are a few thoughts on. He had a whole lot of stuff there, so I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
Great add-ons, Adam. I have thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, no, we really enjoyed hearing it, and definitely great advice. As you're building, we could all constantly keep learning along the way. So great add-ons. So I also wanted to welcome anybody else that would like to join us up here, if you've got any questions. And also, as an alternative, you can always go into the chat, which is the bubble on the right hand side down the bottom. And we've already had some really great questions in there. And thank you for everybody else for jumping in there. I see Jason said, thanks for putting out this content, very helpful. So we appreciate that. Okay, onwards and upwards, Bobby. Okay, so, all right, so uh, another question that I would like to know, and I'm sure the listeners would be curious about, is okay, so once you've sort of established across, say, the three main social media platforms of your choice, from there, how do you move forward? Like, as in with your content and creating, and I mean, sometimes you seem to be everywhere. Like I have noticed you post um, on Twitter, and then you're over on LinkedIn. So what is the strategy for that, sort of for you going forward, as in a maintenance plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say that number one, you have to understand the flow of your content strategy plan, right? How does that flow? How does that work? So, for example, I would create a video that would go on LinkedIn, and I would create copy around that and hashtags, and then I would repurpose that video to do on Instagram maybe a day later, and maybe share on Facebook and Twitter a day or two later, and then eventually put it up on YouTube. And that was kind of my flow. And the copy for each one would shift a little bit depending on who I'm talking to, because Facebook was for my friends, and Twitter and Instagram were different in terms of length as well as hashtag usage. So I would change that up. So that would be the flow that I had. Now, TikTok adds a whole different complication for me because and the reason I avoided TikTok partially was because I I've decided TikTok's going to be a personal project for me, and so I'm sharing other types of videos that are more personal and fun videos on there. Things that I see, things about my kids, nature, songs, jokes, things like that. And so now part of my flow in the morning is now I actually don't create daily content on LinkedIn anymore. I do, like, for example, today I'm not on LinkedIn. So I so but I am creating TikTok content every day now. So I do one in the morning, and it doesn't take me very long. It takes me like maybe 10 minutes to post something, and then I share it across my channels. So, but again, to that question, having your flow is important. What's the flow? My flow is 4 to 5 times per week. My LinkedIn company page, 3 to 4 times on LinkedIn, and then tweets. I'll go into Twitter and I'll tweet and retweet stuff on a regular basis every day. Whatever gets my attention, I'll tweet it out there and retweet. I'm a big retweeter for sure. Like I don't do as many tweets as other people do. I on certain days I might do, on a really good day I might tweet. I might tweet maybe 20 times, but on regular days I'm only tweeting maybe 5 or 6 things on my own. The rest is all retweets of things that I care about. And then so one was the flow, which I want to talk about. That's really, really important. The other thing that's really important is knowing what you can repurpose and what you can't repurpose, right? So there's things you can repurpose very easily to put on those platforms. I think that goes a long way. And I had a third one, but I'm forgetting for a second. The question was, remind me the question. It was to understand how to do it across multiple platforms. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So, like, what's your strategy? And part of it is flow, and part of the question, and you answered that beautifully. But then that second part about adjusting or repurposing your content for the different platforms, because I mean, Instagram is so different to Twitter.
Right. Yeah,
Instagram is the visual.
and I just thought,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
I just saw the third thing I wanted to say, which was knowing where and how to automate things, right? So, for example, um, when I upload a video to YouTube, it automatically tweets it out and shares on my Facebook and LinkedIn business pages, right? When I share something on Instagram, it automatically shares it to Tumblr, and it shares. There's another one I haven't used in a while, but there you go. It shares it to Tumblr and it shares it to Twitter automatically. And so I've set up certain automations that have helped me also create conversations. I have this automated tweet. One of my favorite automated tweets that I do is I just tell people, ask people what's exciting them today, what they're grateful for, and that's led to some really fun conversation with people. People share some really great stuff, and I love those. I mean, it's just a great way. And some people are like, "Oh, why are you automating this?" I'm like, "Well, and aside from the 1 out of 1,000 complainers, I have dozens of people who write really nice things, and we start a conversation with some of them. So I love those. So I do have so having that clear automation strategy goes a long way. And again, one of the reasons why I want to make note of, if you look on the nest above, we did a free workshop last past Saturday on December 3rd, specifically about how to build multi-platform expansion. So if you're just on one platform, how do you expand to one, two? If you're on two, how do you expand to three or four? How do you find the right strategy? And also, how do you monetize it? So we talked about getting started on 4 different platforms: Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. And we're actually moving forward with a deeper dive workshop. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 hours for 10 people. So the tweet there in the nest, if you're interested, click on the link and you can join us. But basically, me and 2 other experts are going to run breakout rooms on specific platforms. So I'll do a half hour TikTok, and I'll take people and I'll look at their profiles and give them direct customized advice on their platform and their targeting and their content creation strategy, and also how to monetize there. And there'll be another room where Ilya will be talking about TikTok and Instagram. There'll be another room where Melanie's talking about LinkedIn. So we've set up this really awesome workshop for people. And if you want to learn how to actually do this, and you basically just come in with questions. You say, Bobby, take a look at my LinkedIn profile. Give me some advice. Bobby, take a look at my TikTok, my Twitter, and give me some advice on my content or my strategy or how to monetize. How to do, one of the hardest things for people to do is how to do DMs, right? Most people struggle with 3 things: optimize profile, an effective content strategy, and a DM outreach strategy that leads to business. And those are three things that I'm going to customize personally for each of you if you want to come to that workshop. So just want to point that out. But hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have a new speaker up here. Uh, Shut up.
Hey, how are
Do
you?
you have a question? Hey, warm
Yeah,
welcome. Do you have
yeah,
a
I do.
question for Bobby?
Yes,
Great, go ahead.
yes. Yeah. So I've been on Twitter for a little bit, but I mainly jumped on Twitter. I coach youth basketball, high school team. So as you know, a lot of recruiting and dealing with kids, it kind of happens on Twitter a lot, and so I just like the sports angle of Twitter. I jump in a bunch of spaces and have fun with that part of it. But far as monetizing it, what are some of the better niches that I guess you all have seen that where people are able to monetize uh using Twitter? My idea is probably I've seen people do monetize Amazon courses and weight loss type stuff. Um and I sell some products on Amazon, but not that it would work on Twitter. But what I've seen on Twitter is people uh, dealing with Amazon, they might sell how to better deal in Amazon and make more money, or sell some kind of education course. What are the better niches that you all have seen that works well with Twitter to be able to monetize it?
Well, first thing I'll say is that you can monetize just about anything if you have a clear target audience and a clear need for the product or service and a clear strategy to build it up, right? So whether you're I mean, if you are selling lamps and you talk about lamps, you can probably find a way to sell lamps on this platform. Services and coaching based programs and training programs are very easy to build on this platform. So again, having strong content strategy, even hosting a space like this where you share your knowledge and invite them. Like I'm here sharing my knowledge, and I'm letting you know about the workshop above, and hopefully some of you join me. And or if you're not sure, you ping me and DM me, and then we have a conversation via the DMs on where to take your profile to the next level. Twitter obviously has certain areas that do well. I mean, obviously, tech does quite well on this platform. NFTs and cryptocurrency are a huge topic here on Twitter versus other platforms. So there's people who are selling in those ways. But it's pretty hard to. But Twitter is such a global platform. It it, in my mind, from I've worked with people on a broad range of stuff, and Twitter and LinkedIn in particular. That's why we were talking earlier about, if you start with two for business, Twitter and LinkedIn, they're the best places to really, you can build an audience for just about anything and eventually host a space or do a live. And next thing you know, people are DMing you and they're requiring your services or they want to buy your product, right? So I think that you can do that. Twitter, how's Twitter better than other platforms? I mean, it's a great space for NFTs for my scene. It's a great space for tech stuff. It's a really great space to share coaching and creating communities. It's a great space for political advisors, and people in media to talk about those things. So there are lots of things that Twitter has, but I also believe that it's broad enough that anyone can, like, I can help you. I can help any business or brand monetize on this platform or LinkedIn or the other ones we're talking about. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it did, man. Thanks. Appreciate both of you.
Okay, thanks so much. Shut up. You're welcome to hang around if you have any other questions. Next, hey, warm welcome to my friend Erica Diamond. Warm welcome to this space, and love to hear questions for Bobby on followers and monetization that he's created.
Good morning. So, such a big fan of you both. And Bobby, I wanted to know it was more, it was a question, but it was more if you're listening and feeling discouraged. This is what I have found. If you go to my profile, I've tweeted 100,000 times. I mean, I've been on Twitter since 2009. This was my platform, like at the beginning, to share my blog and meet people. But I don't know, Bobby, like I'm on TikTok to no success. I'm on every social media platform. I'm on LinkedIn. Facebook. I have found Instagram to be the place that my clientele, or whatever you want to call it, my ICA, my ideal client, they are there. And so I was spending a lot of time trying these different platforms. So I feel like if you're trying all the platforms and you're getting discouraged, like that was the place where I can share the most interactive content. So I could share stills and videos and lives and everything. And then for some reason, I just that's where my audience. I teach self-care to busy working women who are feeling burnt out. And so that was where people, bit from my book and my course and everything I was selling. And so I've stopped kind of focusing on Twitter. And I found that LinkedIn has been a great new platform for me. But I just kind of feel what has worked for me is I was stressing over, like, okay, everyone says you got to be on TikTok. So I was sharing videos on TikTok and nothing was moving. It was not moving the needle. So I'm like, F it. I'm going to go where my audience is. That works well. And so I'm just going to, so I've been focusing on specifically Instagram and a little bit of LinkedIn. And is that okay? Can I just say F it? Like, it's just not where it's not, they're following me or they're talking to me. But if I want sales, it's not converting. It's not moving the needle. It's not growing my revenue. So can I just stick with Instagram and LinkedIn? I mean, I teach this too, but I'm just, it's work. Can I stick with it? And that'll be okay. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why we recommend multi-platform expansion is because you never know what's going to hook people, right? And so having, 3 or 4 platforms is a way to hook people into the other things that you're doing. So I think that's really important. And you also have to learn about your target audience and where they are. Like, women who are buying, self-care type products. Yeah, Instagram is fantastic for that. And every platform has their benefits. Like Twitter is fantastic for hosting a space and building awareness around what you're doing. Instagram is fantastic for DMs because you're getting 70 to 80% people responding to DMs, which is far better than any other platform I can even think of. Like nothing's even close, right? LinkedIn's great if you want to attract professionals in the working field who maybe are burnt out at work, and so that's a great place to go after them because they're there and they're thinking it. So you know so in terms of the other platforms, what I would say is that look for a way to maintain some sort of presence through some repurposing of content or automation of content, right? That's a good way to go. Like for example, Instagram. If you're posting on Instagram, a really easy thing is to use like if this then that and automate your images to directly go on Twitter, right? And so people will go to your Instagram account because that's where you want them to go. So I would continue to, if LinkedIn and Instagram are the two big ones, yeah, awesome, do that, focus there. And usually, what people do is they have a primary platform. So maybe Instagram's your primary platform, and then you share that on LinkedIn, and then you can automate that to show up on Twitter, and maybe it can share it somewhere else if you want to. I mean, TikTok has the benefit of huge organic growth, so you never know what's going to stick with people, and all of a sudden get tons of attraction. So, but you also and the other another one rule that I tell people is how much time you got, how many resources do you have, right? I mean, if you have no resources and no money to help, like let's say with a VA or something, then and let's say you can only commit 10 hours per week, then you're probably going to stick to a 2 platform strategy. If you have a little bit more, then okay, maybe you can throw in a third or fourth one. I always like to start people on 3. That's kind of my general take. But I think based on what you're saying, stick to what's working, continue to monitor what's evolving and growing, and then at least maintain a presence on other platforms in certain ways. You can run a Twitter space and like a social audio room. You can have repurposed content. You can have an automation strategy that shows your presence there, or just going on every once in a while. I think that again, putting that into your strategy, I think will go a long way. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. No, I'm a content machine. It's one of my strengths. I do repurpose. It just doesn't hit the way it hits in those 2 platforms. So I will do it. I'll keep doing it, and I won't feel bad if it's not hitting as well in Twitter or TikTok or wherever. And I do all those repurposing. It's just for some reason it's not as well received or engaged as in those 2 platforms.
That's okay. I'm the same way. Like, I mean, the stuff I put on Instagram doesn't engage the way it does on Twitter and Clubhouse and LinkedIn. But I keep putting it out there, and that's fine. You never know. Sometimes something just will hit. I definitely can tell you that every single platform that I've done, there's always been something that's hit at one moment or time, except for TikTok because I just started 2 weeks ago. But I think that's going to be it's an interesting thing. And that's why for TikTok, if something may like hit, oh, okay, oh, there you go, people love that, great. What can I do with that? And next thing you know, I'm finding a way to reach out to people and DMing folks.
Uh, yeah, Bobby, thanks so much, Erica, for the question. And you actually inspired me to add on to that, actually, and ask Bobby something else. Okay, so what I've noticed is there, there's different algorithms for each platform. And what Erica was talking about was like, as in, things don't always work the same on every platform as far as content. But I mean, is there a way? I mean, is there a methodology that you're using to sort of help work with the algorithm, or is it just impossible to track because it's changing? What are your thoughts on algorithm?
So knowing the algorithms on different platforms is a huge advantage, right? Knowledge is power. So you should actually take the time to understand what are the different things that work on each of the platforms you want to grow, right? So I've taken the time to understand Twitter algorithms and LinkedIn algorithms in particular. And with Instagram, I'm learning a bit more about how that works too. So it's definitely in your best interest to do this because it just allows you to optimize, it allows you to surf the algorithm a little bit better with your content, knowing what times to post, the length of post, knowing what hashtags work. These are all really important strategies. So yeah, I mean, algorithm is part of your research and part of your marketing research to get better results. Absolutely. Hope that answers
Awesome,
it.
thank you. Yes, yes, no, that's awesome. Okay, so just to continue on this path, so let's do a hypothetical here. So say if
Sorry, Indra. Sorry to interrupt, Indra. Just for a second, though, I gotta mention though that I have to go, so we have to end the room in like a couple of minutes. So, if there are last minute questions, then give me your hypothetical. And we'll go. Like, let's. I can give you 2 to 5 minutes, but let's do that.
Okay, so my hypothetical is going to round this up nicely. And so basically, if you've grown, well, we could actually apply it to what you did actually. So if you've grown your account, you said that there was like say up to say 20 or 30,000. What can people start to do around that level? Because I mean, you can't do the same things when you've got like 300 followers. I mean, obviously, we're picking up that this takes time. You have to be patient, you have to build your audience. But what are some of the advantages that you can do once you do start to get a bigger audience and that people can look forward to doing and actually start doing some practical things to engage, to build, and to monetize?
Okay, so yeah, there's a bunch of things. So we kind of already talked about this before, but what I would say is that leverage your influence and your reach to reach out to other people of influence so that you can actually build a personal connection with them, right? So a brand or a business, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is you can build income and revenue through influencer marketing if you know how it works with your following. So if you can now reach out to companies and organizations and brands or even agencies say, hey, listen, I have this many followers on this platform. I'd like to do influencer marketing for you guys. Let me know if you're interested. And so, and having clear rates that are based on the research, I think that goes a long way too. So you can be doing that. And then finally, I think that uh, giving people an opportunity to leverage your influence, right? So you go to brands and you go to companies and individuals and say, listen, I have this many followers. I want to do a live stream. I want to put it out there. I want to interview you. That's a great way to get their attention. And the last thing I'll say is that when you host audio rooms are great, right? Whether you have 20,000 or 100,000 or a million people, a million followers, if you host an audio space or a live stream and you give them access to you, it's very powerful, right? People love to have access to influencers and thought leaders and whatnot. And so by giving them access to you, that goes a long way. That's the same reason why I'm talking about that workshop that I'm doing up above because people want access. I'm only going to help 10 people in that room for 2 hours. And so if you want help and you want access to me and personal customization, I'm there for you. If you want to access me in my spaces, I do Twitter spaces every every Monday, and I do one on Tuesday on LinkedIn Audio. I do one on Clubhouse on Fridays. So I'm doing that stuff because giving people access is one of the best ways to build that authentic trust and connection. And it's also one of the best ways to um, start a conversation about how you might be able to help each other, and then it then leads to a conversation about building business.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That's a really nice way to end questions. um, yeah,
I don't
well,
use the soundboard enough. I love the soundboard. I don't
I
use it
know.
enough.
I know I should too, actually. You're inspiring me, Bobby, to use the soundboard. See, there it is. We have to keep building on our tools, everybody.
Amen.
Um, well, what a great space. I can. Thank you for everything that you shared in this space, Bobby. And for many people that missed the beginning, there is a replay. And I would really strongly encourage you to go back and listen to the replay at the beginning, especially when Bobby was laying out the foundations and how to start building from the beginning to where he is now, which is quite a amazing journey. So thank you so much, Bobby, for sharing with us all of these pieces of wisdom for your journey, and over to you to wrap up the space. And of course, Bobby will be back next week on Monday at the same time at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hey, if you're around and you like music, I have my music space in the Positivity Vibe Tribe tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much for having me as your co-host, Bobby.
Yeah, thanks, Indra. And yeah, make sure you follow Indra and check out her rooms and her space she's doing tonight. That's great. And yeah, I think I'm here every Monday at 11 a.m. I also do Twitter Spaces on Sundays at 3 p.m. where I talk about LinkedIn, and then of course I do rooms on LinkedIn Audio on Tuesday, Thursdays at 4 p.m. and 2 p.m. respectively. If you want to learn more about how to build monetization and how to build and monetize with content strategy across multi-platforms, the workshop above, just click on the link and learn more about what I'm doing. You can read it all and see if you're interested. You can also ping me or DM me anytime on platforms, and I'm happy to answer questions. And I think that all of you have this opportunity to refine your focus, get clarity, and come up with a strategy that works. Most people struggle with the outreach, the DMs. They struggle with how do I convert sales. They struggle with that whole monetization piece. And so I want to help you grow, but I also want to help you monetize. And so I want to thank everyone for being here. I encourage you to share the replay, share the 1, 2, or 3 things that you learned. A great content repurposing strategy is to take rooms like this and share the replay, or take a picture, share it on Instagram, share it on LinkedIn, share the top 3 things you learned, tag me and tag Indra. Next thing you know, we see it, and then I'll comment, I'll like it, and next thing you know, my 47,000 on LinkedIn or my 32,000 on Instagram will see that I've commented, or my 500,000 on here, because when I retweet here, it goes to 500,000 people, which brings value to our followers, but also gives you new followers. So these are all opportunities for you to grow. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful week. Want to learn more about me? Just reach out anytime. Check out my stuff, and I'll see you soon. All the best to you. Bye. In the room in 2 seconds.